Right, what's good, y'all? Hope y'all are well. Good to see everybody in the house. I know it's early in the week, but I'm always appreciative when folks jump on early, especially when I don't drop that I'm even going to do a show. So I really do appreciate you guys coming through. So shout out to Ron, Prince, what's up? Black Toxic, what's going on? We got Mike in here, Imperfect, Christopher. We got Coach, Blood Crow, Quiet Storm. What's up? Quiet Storm, appreciate you dropping my book in Medium Man's comment section a couple different times. Thank you for that. Let's see, Ahmed, what's going on? Jones. We got Ray Knowles, OPW. Good brother Ian in the house, always supporting the show. Much appreciation. We got TD. What's going on? Let's see here. Busha. Busha asks about the intro to the video podcast. Shout out to the Green Gorilla channel. Green Gorilla also does custom beats. So I asked him to make a beat for the show and gave him a couple things I was thinking about, and that's what he did. So I couldn't tell you where the vocals came from, but you know, that speaks to the skill level of Green Gorilla. So check that brother out if you haven't subscribed to his show, and check out the Green Gorilla channel. Shout out to Hey Roo, what's good? Chef Mike, what's up, man? Dr. Thunder, appreciate that. Dr. Thunder says happy birthday, man. Appreciate it. 49. Yeah, I got 1 year to go before the 50. And this is the first birthday where my son isn't here. So it's a weird little feeling. I was commenting on Facebook a few days ago. I have a reminder in my calendar, you know, every Sunday to make sure I check my son's haircut and make sure his ears are clean and all that. And I've had that in there probably since he was 4 years old, the weekly reminder. And so it came up and I was like, wow, you know, it's weird. So I was debating on whether or not I needed to delete it because it was just, you know, it's just reminiscent of a whole nother time. So, you know, having this birthday today while he's having a ball in school is just, you know, and I'm excited for him. I'm happy for him. He's loving it. He's enjoying his independence and doing his thing. So, you know, it is what it is. But appreciate that, Dr. Thunder. Hope you're well. Support the Dr. Thunder channel, people. If you haven't subscribed, you know the deal. Go do so. The brother drops it on a regular basis. That's one of my professor brothers, the brothers in the fraternal order of the academic of academia. So support them. Brotherly Love, what's up, D? Hurricane, what's up? Harvest. Quanos, Mike Andrews, Money Cash, what's up? Face Facts, Smack, what's going on? Let's see. Had a Soul, Waffle Weave. Let's see here. MLR, what's good with you, man? All right. A few people in here coming through. T Fitness, what's up? Keith, what's going on? SLN, Sleeping Olmex, what's up? And like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the show if you will, so we can continue to bring you independent black male thought. Shout out to MLR for kicking us off. $50. Appreciate that. Supporting my black male scholars as always. Appreciate it. Quiet Storm with the 20. Much appreciated. Thank you. I never noticed that. You got the little logo in there. I ain't mad at you. Point says support black male media. That's what's up. Shout out to Adrian. Appreciate that support, good brother. Thank you. A birthday cake gift, and I don't know what the third one is, but it is what it is. Appreciate it nonetheless, man. Thank you. So yeah. So support the show if you will. Y'all know the deal. We're trying to keep things flowing over here. So it is what it is. We're getting into it. So support if you can. And obviously, if you have not done so already, consider picking up the book. Shout out to Darren. This is a new pick that he sent me with Curry's Man Not. So I appreciate it. Professor Carl Tone Jones. Appreciate the support. Shout out to you. Yeah. So yeah, shout out to Darren for the pick. Support the book, Black Masculinist Turn. You can go ahead and pick that up on Amazon. You can also pick it up on the Rutledge website. So I will go ahead and post the link. The link is also in the description box for the video. Might have to scroll a little bit, but you'll see it in there. Right. So the Rutledge link is there. Shout out to BGS. Appreciate that. I was trying to embarrass him a little bit. I sent him a picture of my lecture this morning in my class. I had to meditate on one of the quotes from BGS. So I sent him a picture of it. He didn't even see it, so I had to kind of show him so he could see it. That the stuff we talk about here, it makes it into my class. It is what it is, and not just mine. I've had at least 3 other faculty people send me pictures in the last couple of days of the book, and the book itself is an amalgamation of conversations that come out of this space. So there are those of us that are using our material to teach the next generation. So it is what it is. So anyway, support the book if you can, so that we can continue to do this and get it in. I'm not going to be in here super long because I still got to celebrate. I taught today. So it's been kind of grinding, but anyway, got it in. So first, before we jump in, I wanted to kind of remind us of something, because we talk about a lot of stuff in the manosphere and or manosphere adjacent, manosphere itself, those of us who are swimming in similar waters, walking the line between a variety of different things, whatever, however you want to frame this. Hey Donnie, what's up? Appreciate the birthday wishes. Thanks, man. And LXST, appreciate that. Thank you. But I want us to remember, in the midst of advocating for black men and boys on terms that we never have before, let's not forget the terms that still need to be represented, still need to be acknowledged, because the stuff has never stopped happening. That's why you see it. It says it ain't ever stopped happening. And there's a reason that I say that, because we ignore it, and we need to be the group to talk about this the most. So if you can see this, right? Maryland apologizes to man wrongly convicted of murder, agrees to pay $340,000 settlement, considered long overdue. There you go. See that picture of him right there? That should tell you everything you need to know just in that image about what we're talking about. This kind of stuff ain't ever stopped happening, y'all. And so we need to, in the midst of all the things we're talking about, we cannot lose sight of the basic realities that many brothers face, right? So let's see here. Let's go ahead and hear a little bit about this. Man, come on now. There we go. Slow it down. All right, so let's hear about it.
A man wrongly convicted of 2 separate violent crimes will be compensated by the state of Maryland after spending years behind bars, including over a year after he had been proven innocent. A Maryland board approved more than $340,000 for a settlement on Wednesday in compensation for Demetrius Smith, who was wrongly convicted of murder and first-degree assault and spent more than 5 years in prison. Wesmore, who chairs the 3-member Board of Public Works, apologized to Smith before the board approved the settlement, noting that it's been more than a decade since his release in 2013. We're here today more than 10 years after he was released from incarceration, providing Mr. Smith with long overdue justice that he was deprived of, an apology from the state of Maryland that until today he's never received. Moore told Smith, who attended the hearing in person. Smith was 25 in 2008 when he was wrongfully charged with murder. Moore noted that at Smith's bail hearing, the judge said the case before him was probably the thinnest case he had ever seen. But Moore said the prosecution was determined to press forward, relying on testimony from a witness who was later found to have not even been at the scene of the crime.
God damn. You see what I'm talking about? A witness that wasn't even at the scene of the crime. Damn.
Less than 2 months after his arrest, while on bail, Smith was arrested and taken into custody for first-degree assault. Once again, the prosecution relied on witnesses who later recanted their testimony. The governor said, in 2010, Smith was convicted and sentenced to life in prison, plus 18 years. In 2011, he entered an 04 plea for the assault charge, maintaining his innocence. Moore said Smith entered the plea after losing faith in the criminal justice system. Under an 04 plea, the defendant does not admit guilt but acknowledges the likelihood of a conviction if the case went to trial. In 2011, the Maryland U.S. Attorney's Office charged the person who was actually responsible for the murder, and Smith's innocence was proven. But he still spent another year and a half in prison, the governor said. It wasn't until 2012 that the state finally dropped the murder conviction. In May 2013, Smith petitioned the court to revisit his 04 plea for the assault charge, and his sentence was modified to time served, plus 3 years probation, which was later reduced to probation. I'm deeply sorry for the fact that our justice system failed you not once, but our justice system failed you twice. And while no amount of money can make up for what was taken from you, the action this board is taking today represents a formal acknowledgement from the state for the injustice that was caused, Moore told Smith. Moore from CBS News Dallas. Man reflects on his
Okay. Damn. Why was he on probation at all? That's the question I'm asking, but nevertheless. Yeah. So this brother got out some years ago, but nevertheless was dismissed twice, really overlooked twice, right? And so I don't want us to forget about how these things impact us, because we tend to, we get real caught up talking about relationships. We get caught up talking about, and I'm not saying those things aren't relevant. They actually are, because they impact us in a whole different way. But at the same time, the very basic stuff that we've been talking about in regard to Black men has never gone away. Whether we're talking about police homicide, false arrest, whether we're talking about a number of these issues that we've known about Black men that go on with Black men for years, we still have to acknowledge them because it's still happening every day. There's a reason Black men are the most exonerated group out of all in terms of those getting out of prison like this. It's not an accident. And we need to still keep our foot on the necks of institutions that are involved with exploiting Black men in this manner, right? So we got to keep on it. Can't let it slip. And stop acknowledging it. So, yeah, man, I had to go back to my Snoop voice. I missed it. So Cool Breeze says, enjoy your special day. Much appreciated. Life of Commerce, appreciate that support. Adam Bell is a new member. Welcome to the Onyx Report Brotherhood. Appreciate you here. But yeah, so I just wanted to drop that before we get in. Let's not forget, as we really focus on some issues that, for the most part, we've never really spoken about aloud. Let's not forget the issues that stay on the table in regard to our experience. Now, there's a couple things that have been constants when it comes to Black men, not only, being incarcerated on improper charges, having false evidence levied against us, witnesses that weren't even there, so on and so forth. But one of the things we also have dealt with is the feminization of masculinity. And we're seeing it happening beyond just the Black community. But of course, we've always kind of held the position of being the face of it. So check this out. For those of you who can see it, I apologize if it's too small. I will read the bottom of it. But if you haven't seen this, this popped up very recently. This is a picture of Usher. I saw it for the first time a couple days ago. It says Usher arrives at the BOF 500 Gala rocking all Louis Vuitton by Pharrell Williams, spring summer 2024 pieces. Right. And this is what's considered, cutting edge. Whatever's it's cutting edge. It's always a Black man in a dress. This is always supposed to represent some kind of cutting edge. Right? That's a damn constant. And I've been seeing this mess, for I can't tell you how long. And there's always somebody trying to present this as high art. Feminizing Black men is high art for some reason, right? And this keeps going. So the feminization of Black men in particular. But again, as I said, this is not limited to just men, right? I mean, just Black men. This is a recent one that I ran across as well. And in as much as the picture is interesting, the caption caught me off guard as well. They were actually quoting from Kevin Sorbo. Now, I first heard of Kevin Sorbo when he did the TV Hercules series back in the 90s. And I think now he's like a Christian filmmaker, Christian actor. He does a lot of, religious kind of films. But he nonetheless says in this quote, he says, it says Hollywood actor Kevin Sorbo slams lack of manly men in industry today, singling out Timothée Chalamet. And I probably didn't pronounce that right. Everywhere we look, bold, confident, self-assured females upstage passive men who recede quietly into the background, into the basement. Right? Shout out to Kevin Sorbo. Right? So he's pointing out the same kinds of things we're talking about. So now it's not just limited to Black men, or at least it hasn't been for a little while, but now we're starting to see it more so with other groups of men. What's up, Urban? Good to see you in here, man. Mr. Shug, what's up? Yeah. So this is what we're looking at. So the feminization of masculinity is a constant when it comes to Western culture and Black men in particular. And of course, we know that that's tied to the hyper masculinization of Black men, right? The idea that we're these super alpha walking bucks, kind of thing. And so to feminize us is considered, risque, high art, kind of theory. But at the end of the day, it's still based on a fetishized view of Black masculinity as dangerous, as alpha, as, especially in regard to sex, all these kinds of different terms. So to invert that is considered to be, highly creative. But I really don't find either one representative of Black male humanity. But again, we're seeing this spread to other circles, while at the same time we see the masculinization of femininity. But that masculinization doesn't come in just runway shows of women in suits. I mean, there is that, but it also takes a different bent. So this is a recent video that I'm not going to play. I've been having too many damn copyright issues on YouTube lately, but you can check this one out yourself. All right, new moms are getting $1,000 a month from this project, no strings attached. This is based in New York, and it's based off the Bridge Project. And it's reminiscent of a number of projects we've covered on this show for the last 3 years in particular that hyper target on Black women, right? Most particularly, hyper target areas that are predominated by Black women, and particularly Black women with kids. And so you see these kind of programs at the city level. You see these kind of programs. I think so far it's been kind of reserved for the city level, but these kind of programs are targeted at helping mothers and single mothers in particular. Even though we're going to ignore the homelessness rates for Black men, which definitely suggests and always have that Black men always needed some degree of help, but that help has never been extended. So we soldier on. Most Black men don't expect help. We don't really ask for it. We've tried those things. They don't tend to work. It is what it is. But I tie this to the masculinization of women because when you start to listen to the dating circles around how these conversations go, entitling women seems to be one of the kind of, one of the symptoms or byproducts, I should say, of funding them. And whether that funding has to do with welfare, whether that funding has to do with college access, whether it has to do with white collar job access, whatever the nature of funding and support, whether it's grants that Black women get, and women in general, but especially when it comes to the Black community, whatever that support is, it's usually tied to an entitlement, right? Where men are measured in value based on what she gets for free that men don't get. And if you can't match value for what she gets in regard to her resource base, there's supposed to be something wrong with you. And this is bullshit. But it's nonetheless the way it goes. All right. Shout out to BGS. And shout out to Mr. Smith. Appreciate that. Says happy birthday, Doc. Hold the line. Appreciate it. Let me see. Barry Little says white men attacking the Black Gynocracy they built. Remember what Professor Black Truth always says about them: breaking their tools when they are done using them. Yeah? Hey, this is what it is. You know, the weird part about it is they don't really acknowledge, or Black women in particular don't acknowledge they have a gynocracy. They think it's a fabrication. And any achievements brought to bear is strictly a product of their own labor. This is kind of how they kind of view their own productivity, so on and so forth. But we know it's a little different because we witness it. We grow up in these households. We see the resources and support that we don't get when we're in similar situations. But the thing about it is, what I've noticed for the most part is whether Black men are poor or doing well, you know, we don't expect it. We don't even really ask for it, because when we have, the response has always been no, or not even an answer, because you're not relevant, right? But when she is able to get those resources, she doesn't turn around and say, what about my brothers? What about my son? What about my boyfriend, my husband? No. She takes those resources, she uses them, and then she throws them in your face about what you haven't been able to do on same terms that she has. That's kind of one of the problems that's come about from this kind of bifurcated situation when it comes to resources and state support. Now, here's one of the things that we're starting to see happen, and this is the basis for today's show. Right? I talked about this a little while ago when it first happened, when there was when there was a question in the air about whether or not this would go to court, and it did. So you can find this on CNN.com. I've already put the links to this in the description box if you want to check this article out. I'll go ahead and put the link into the comment section as well. Federal Appeals Court approves injunction to block grant for Black women entrepreneurs. All right, so here you have Arian Simone, a partner at the Black women-owned venture capitalist firm, the Fearless Fund, speaks during a news conference on August 10th, 2023 in New York. All right. And so this is a particularly, well, I'm going to let the article speak for it. Go ahead and bring back Snoop for this, because I definitely want to hear him break it down. So let's check it out. Well, now basically what we're looking at is a fairly new phenomenon, right? This is a phenomenon where we're starting to see white America starting to push back against the, you know, as Gigi calls them, the grab'ems and gimmies. He says it much better though. The gimmies and the grab'ems. They're starting to push back on the resources that have been extended. And this is the basis of the question for tonight's show, right? Are white men pushing back against the gynocracy, the Black gynocracy they created? Understand, I differentiate a gynocracy from a matriarchy, right? A gynocracy is an institution that's been developed in an alien context, meaning that it's funded from outside of the community. It's established outside of the community. And within the community, it's used for purposes that really don't directly apply to us. Only thing we know is there are some demographics that benefit and some that don't. And the primary group that we've seen benefit from this kind of fake framework have been Black women. They've been given the baubles of middle-class access. It's not substantive, but when you're dealing with a relatively poor community, any amount of support can offset one group against another. And if you do it for over 50 years, and that's just being generous. I mean, we can actually, I mean, that's being mild, I should say. We can go for much further than 50 years. What we see right, is the kind of entitlement that comes with it. So now we have to ask the question, are we seeing these things being retracted? So here we go.
The U.S. Federal Appeals Court has granted a conservative group's request to temporarily block a Black-owned venture capitalist firm from awarding grants exclusively to Black women entrepreneurs. In a 2-1 decision, judges from the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals granted the American Alliance for Equal Rights motion for an injunction on Saturday, temporarily halting the Fearless Fund, a Black women-owned venture capitalist firm, and its foundation from awarding its Fearless Strivers grant exclusively to Black women. The Alliance has argued the grant violates Section 1981 of the U.S. Code, which guarantees equal rights for all people to make and enforce contracts within the jurisdiction of the United States, without favor or discrimination based on race. And feedback. We conclude that the plaintiff has established that the defendants, the Fearless Fund racially exclusionary program, the Fearless Strivers grant contest, is substantially likely to violate 42 U.S.C. 1981. Judge Robert Luck and Judge Andrew Brasher wrote in their opinion. The decision overturns a lower court's ruling last week that found the grant could continue because the funding was protected by the First Amendment. But appellate judges Luck and Brasher rejected that argument in their ruling, writing, although the First Amendment protects the defendant's right to promote beliefs about race, it does not give the defendants the right to exclude persons from a contractual regime based on their race. The injunction requires the Fearless Fund and its foundation to halt the grant selection process for the duration of the Alliance's lawsuit. A federal judge has denied the request from a conservative group founded by Edward Blum Pitcher for an injunction to stop a Black women-owned venture capitalist firm from awarding grants exclusively to Black women entrepreneurs. Georgia federal judge rejects conservative activist group's effort to halt grant funding for Black women. The decision gives momentum to the latest of a series of lawsuits filed by conservative activist Edward Blum, the same man behind the Students for Fair Admissions, Inc., the president and fellows of Harvard College lawsuit, which led to the Supreme Court dismantling affirmative action in colleges and universities in June.
Okay. Damn. The AI took over and wouldn't stop. Anyway, so you're starting to see what's going on here. And I think it's important that we look at it, right? Because this is it really, when we talk about who's pushing this is Edward Blum. As it says, the same one behind the Students for Fair Admissions, Inc. versus President and Fellows of Harvard College lawsuit, right? Which led to the Supreme Court dismantling of affirmative action. They get real particular. I will say this. Conservative white men get real particular about, racism, as it were, when it comes to, something they don't benefit from. They seem to get real ignorant about it when it goes across another way. But in this instance, Black men are standing at the sidelines watching this because we didn't benefit from it one way or the other. And Black women didn't care if we benefited from it. Even though you have more Black entrepreneurs, Black male entrepreneurs than female, it doesn't mean they're well funded. Doesn't mean that they find support. Most of the time, these guys get it out the mud and they do it by themselves, right? So when these kind of projects keep popping up, I think most of us ignore it or we're used to it. Meanwhile, Black women are getting the bag, and they'll do so at the expense of men, and nobody really cares. So the problem with that, of course, is when there's pushback against it, especially from, this level, Black men aren't jumping in to save anybody or to help anybody to any great degree, because nobody gave a damn about helping Black men with shit. Excuse my language, but it is what it is. So, someone said, is that Snoop reading? It's an AI, yo. Anyway, but this is the core of what we're looking at here, right? Where we're starting to see this pushback, and it really kind of forces us to raise some questions about what we think about this. Let's continue.
Members of the American Alliance for Equal Rights are gratified that the 11th Circuit has recognized the likelihood that the Fearless Strivers grant contest is illegal. Blum, the founder and president of the Alliance, told CNN, "We look forward to the final resolution of this lawsuit." Both judges who granted the injunction were appointed by former President Donald Trump. Judge Charles Wilson, who dissented, was appointed to his seat by former President Bill Clinton.
Okay. So what's important to this, or reminiscent of this, is it's very consistent with something that Black men have been reporting to me from across different occupations, right? Now, in terms of the academy, I can't tell you how many brothers have reached out in the last 5 years, faculty, to tell me about sitting on hiring committees, search committees, looking to hire someone, looking to hire faculty for a position in their department. And what they're told by the predominant group of Black women on these search committees is at the very beginning of the process, these women will come out and clearly say at a meeting for hiring somebody, we are only going to hire Black women for this position, right? Which is illegal. But you don't hear that being said in regard to Black men. And there are already significantly more Black female faculty than Black male at the academy level. So when you hear that kind of thing, it lets you know just how rampant the idea is that there can be a hyper focus on Black women, even within Black spaces, and nobody says anything. Often those brothers find themselves alone and they're concerned about losing their position if they report it. But these are the things that nonetheless happen, right? But we're starting to see pushback in other areas. So this one obviously has to do with entrepreneurship, but it is nonetheless important. All right, let's continue.
Dissent. Wilson said he would have denied the alliance's motion for an injunction and urged appellate judges to take caution when intervening with decisions withheld by the lower courts. Wilson, who implored judges to consider the context of the Civil Rights Act of 1866, noted the law granted freedmen basic economic rights, and that Congress enacted 1981 as the remedial mechanism for bringing these protections to life. It is a perversion of congressional intent to use 1981 against a remedial program whose purpose is to bridge the gap in venture capital funding for women of color founders, a gap that is the result of centuries of intentional racial discrimination. He wrote,
Okay. I wanted it to keep going that time, so let's get it back going here.
Irreparable harm that will result from the granting of this injunction will not be felt by all. Black women will suffer irreparable harm. Fearless Fund is an Atlanta-based company that was started in 2019 to break down the barriers Black women face trying to secure resources and funding for growing their business. Their website lists corporate giants including Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, Fifth Third Bank, and MasterCard as partners. Fearless Fund runs a separate nonprofit organization called the Fearless Foundation, where it gives charitable donations and grants to women of color entrepreneurs, according to co-founder and CEO Ayanna Parsons. The Fearless
Foundation Strivers Grant exclusively awards Black women entrepreneurs grants for up to $20,000. So let me get this straight. Here you have a program that has a grant that exclusively awards Black women entrepreneurs up to $20,000, and their website lists corporate giants such as Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, Fifth Third Bank, and MasterCard as partners. Question: has anybody seen any of these resources extended to Black males? Or even Black males coming out of business programs, which there's a significant percentage of Black business majors in school are male. Seen any of these resources extended to them? Or are we going to argue that somehow because Black males have penises, they also get grants or something? I mean, because again, the underlying idea under intersectionality is that somehow men enjoy a position of privilege, right? So Black men and white men are somewhere sipping, whiskey and smoking cigars and enjoying their power over women, right? But if that's the case, why is it that we see Black men who, if they are able to develop their own entrepreneurial businesses, are often doing so with the sweat of their brow? There's nobody extending them resources, nobody giving out grants like this, and yet you have program after program after program like this with high level corporate investment, and they don't think twice about Black males. And many of these women have sons, fathers, husbands, boyfriends, entrepreneur family members. Doesn't dawn on them to share any of those resources with any of them. This is the crux of the problem when it comes to this whole idea of creating a buffer class out of a relatively poor group of people and only extending that on the basis of gender. There's so many problems with this. I just, man, this is what we're looking at. And I'm going to keep highlighting that because this is not the first business to do this. We've seen this take place with a number of different businesses. I mean, this is millions upon millions invested with no attention whatsoever to even young Black males coming out of school, first generation college students who want to be entrepreneurs. What you tend to find is you have a cadre of women in the last generation that went to college. And when they got into corporate America, they began to kick down resources, but only to themselves. Now, you got to ask yourself, what does that do over the course of 1 to 3 generations, where you have successive groups of women who are only operating in their own interest, being raised by the next group and raised by the next group to primarily focus on no one but themselves, and yet still make calls for community, calls for Black men to sacrifice, shaming Black men for not stepping in and risking their lives to protect women they don't even know. And yet when it comes to resources like this, programs like this, do they extend anything even to young Black men who aren't even starting yet, or who haven't even stepped out the gate yet? Is there anything in this program that says that they offer something to Black males? This is predicated, and this is why theory is so important to kind of look at. What it's predicated on, this intersectionalist idea that somehow Black men enjoy a privilege that Black women don't, and therefore, to make up for this lack of access, you need Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, Fifth Third Bank, and MasterCard to invest in a program that only prioritizes Black women. Yeah. And if Black men don't like it, so what? I've reported on this consistently because we started to see it, especially in during the pandemic, when they really started to, prioritize mom and pop entrepreneurs. Again, I say this every time it comes up. Black men came into this show talking about the only way they could even get loans, they could get grants, they could get support, was to make a Black woman the face of their company. That was the only way. And this is somehow still happening, and it's acceptable. And we're supposed to feel pity. That's hard. That's going to be a tall order for a lot of brothers to do, because none of this has been made relevant even to the boys, even to the sons of these women. They don't see a connection and take issue if you critique what's happening, because critique isn't of itself hatred as far as they're concerned, except when they do it. When they critique Black men, it's love, or at the very least, wisdom from on high. But when you critique what they're doing, it's hatred, and that's how it's received. But I will say at the same time, the frustration of men who have not been able to get any kind of support and have to start from the ground up, it's palpable. And it's not going to lead to any serious sacrifice on men's part to help you preserve a dynamic that you only created for yourself. But I tell you this, even something as subtle as this still catches my eye, right? And we know it's mainly because they're paid, but you look at this image, right? These kind of endeavors are still supported by Black men on one level or another. I mean, granted, they could have just been standing there while she's giving the speech, but more often than not, you still have Black men that support this. But the question to ask is, are white men starting to withdraw? Is white society starting to withdraw the resources that it used to finance the Gynocracy? Or is that what we're seeing right now? Or is this just a one-off? Right? I would say it's a little more, especially considering that the gentleman who's pushed this, right? This was the second, Edward Blum. Right? This was his second push, the first of which had to do with dismantling affirmative action in colleges and universities. And he went straight from there to this. So there might be a backlash to come across and really start to press back against all these practices. But even if it ended today, the last 30 years of these dynamics taking place in such manner where Black boys and men don't get to participate, right? And even when there were attempts for Black men to do it, I mean, we all heard about Obama's program. It was supposedly for Black males, and ended up becoming this my brother's keeper males of color thing. Even that got stamped down real quick, primarily because women initiated a mass campaign to include women and girls, even though there was already a White House Council on Women and Girls. Didn't matter. They still wanted to do it anyway, because you can't do anything for the males, even if the data suggests they need it more than anybody. That is in and of itself considered sexist. That's considered, problematic, and thus a representation of toxic masculinity that needs to be stamped out. But when women are the only ones that get to benefit, particularly Black women, there's no conversation about how many Black males could have benefited from that. No conversation about the statistics around the wealth levels of Black males who are starting their own entrepreneurial programs. We know that in terms of wealth, the Black community has very little. And so the programs we develop, the entrepreneurial businesses we create, are usually not created in any kind of inherited wealth. Often they're created off of, just cash that somebody has in their pocket and a lot of grit. But when there are opportunities for corporate support, they seem to be hoarded in a very interesting way. Now, I know that many of these corporations have high-level Black women working within them, advocating for women and girls. They don't necessarily control anything. They just have, positions. These corporations are doing this not out of love, but because it benefits them to do so, it benefits their public image, right? We get that. But many of these women also know that their sons are not doing well. Their fathers were not doing well. Their brothers are not doing well. And they don't care. They don't care. And this is the problem. Because at the same time, they'll turn around and talk about community and challenge Black men's investment in the very idea of Black community based on whether or not an individual man in a given situation will sacrifice his life for a woman he doesn't even know. But you can build corporate level programs financed by major corporations and completely ignore Black boys and men over and over and over, and expect no one to say shit, and expect Black men to sit there and take it. And then when it starts to fail, turn around and shame Black men for not helping to shore up the waters to make sure it can sustain. Anyway, I just wanted to put that on the table because I think these are some of the things we got to talk about. Not just, some of the issues we've been pointing out in regard to relationships and whatnot. And those are important again. I look at institutions. I look at policy. I'm very interested in how institutions and policy shape our behavior, shape how Black men and boys are treated, even within the community, or what I call intra-communally. But at the end of the day, we ourselves have to be able to not only take up these conversations to get an accurate assessment of where we are, but really start managing and figuring out how to advocate for ourselves and actually work as a group. Something Black males need to do far better at. But I won't say it hasn't been happening. I've been seeing brothers doing that for years. I grew up in dynamics where Black men were supporting each other, starting programs, but we often did it with the money in our pockets kind of thing. We got to step it up and take it to another level. And we can't wait for anybody that we're hoping will help us, even if they've already been able to secure resources, even if the same people who've been able to secure those corporate resources turn around and depend on you every day. But they expect you to make that sacrifice in silence while taking the lion's share of benefits and not even blinking. Sitting at the table with a full plate, watching you with an empty plate, and eating in your face. And telling you ain't shit if you don't have as much as she has. Okay. I'm not about sitting around being mad about it. I'm just pointing out that it's happening. And I'm suggesting to us that we need to better support one another. That's going to start in terms of a media, a Black male-based media. We need to support that and continue to support it. But then we also need to transition those ideas into policy. We need to transition those ideas into organization, especially as it pertains to securing resources. Okay, so we got free agent for L. Andre 416 says, late to class, but even in Canada, I hear white men complaining about their women, and all I can think of is if you only knew. Right. So anyway, I like to hear your thoughts. I'm very curious to know what you guys think about what's going on with Blum and those like him, because he's not going to be alone. This is going to end with Edward Blum, conservative activist. It's not going to end with him. It's going to keep going. I think a lot of that has to do with the state of the economy. Right? As things begin to tighten, resources that have been extended on superfluous grounds are starting to be withdrawn. What are we going to do about it? You know what I'm saying? So as Donnie put it, that one slipped by me. We all we got. So what we going to do? Shout out to Urban. Appreciate that support. Let me see if there's anybody I missed. Okay, we got Mr. Smith, I think. Oh, no, I think I did catch that one. So appreciate that. So, yeah. So anyway, just want to put that out there. Machismo, appreciate that. It's as well argued, sir. I like solution-based conversation. It is what it is, man. That's what we got to do. Ain't nobody coming for us, man. Ain't nobody securing any grants. They're not, bringing in corporations to work in your favor. This is the thing. They're competing with you. And I've been saying this too for the last few years. It's a one-way set of competitions. It's not something black men are jumping into. We're being competed with, and it's a one-way competition. She's competing with you. We have not been able to look at black women and see them as an adversary. And I've been saying this for the longest as well. Black men still think in terms of community. And you know what? I'm not mad about it if that's what you want to do. The question I have for you is, what happens when you notice that this is a one-way dynamic? At least as far as on the macro scale. I'm not talking about if you're throwing an event in your city on Juneteenth and you need somebody to help with the tables and selling food. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying on a larger level, when we start to talk about community advancement, when it comes to resources, when it comes to education, pushing out students into environments, be they blue collar or white collar, where they can begin to expand the standing of the black community on a macro level. When we start to talk about the use of institutions and government policy, federal or state, to advance that agenda, and you find that nobody is seriously advocating for you or your son, but you, even within our own community, that needs to be discussed. And far too many people want to sidestep it. We want to imagine that the community is still envisioned the way it was in the 1970s. But then you have to confront this, and you have to deal with it for real. So anyway, Want to Be Mystic says, do you think a race war will happen in this country in the near future? And I would humbly say I don't think it ever ended, but that's just me. I mean, but again, a war can be fought on many terms. It doesn't always have to get, militaristic, but it can. And every time you see an indication that somebody's been, beaten, lynched, and those things have never stopped, that's what it is. But my question is, what are black men going to do about it? Because nobody's going out their way to be there for you. And if they are, I salute you. I'm happy for you. But in terms of, again, on a macro level, I want to know your thoughts on what you think is happening. What do you see in regard to this Edward Blum attack on, the Fearless Fund? What are your thoughts about it? You see anything coming along with that? Shout out to Julian. Appreciate that support. Yeah, y'all let me know. But anyway, I am going to go ahead and get me a steak. Enjoy my evening. I hope y'all are well, and I look forward to reading your thoughts. So I will talk to y'all later, and y'all have a good one. Peace.